his soulless glare that lacked emotion, and his scowl that could crush a man's will to win. The one they called the Night Train brought an air of menace everywhere he went. And although his name is synonymous with fear, no fighter was more misunderstood and mistreated. Rainy Day Boxing brings you Sonny Liston, a boxing legend.
Sonny Liston, I think, was possibly the greatest intimidator of all time. I've seen him stare guys down where they were so scared climbing up the ring steps they could barely get in the ring.
Looking at people as though he hated everyone. Looking at writers as though he hated all writers.
Sonny Liston, I watched him here in the gym a few months ago, and he can hit a guy in the elbows and just about break his arm.
Liston would serve time for armed robbery and later for beating up a cop. He'd been arrested more than 100 times. His manager was tied to organized crime. And one thing more, Liston could fight like hell.
Born Charles L. Liston in Arkansas, USA, on an unknown date, Sonny's beginnings were as humble as can be. He was the 24th of 25 children. Growing up on a cotton plantation, his father used him as a substitute for a mule. And when he wasn't being worked by his father, he was being whipped by his father, and he had the scars to prove it.
Sonny came up under probably the poorest kind of financial conditions that you could imagine. Developed his tremendous physique working in the cotton fields as barely a teenager.
Liston said, "We grew up with few clothes, no shoes, little to eat. My father worked me hard and whooped me hard."
I realized what this guy's life was like, beaten every day by his father and had welts on his back the rest of his life.
And the mule dies. And the father, who used to beat the crap out of him anyway, constantly, says, "You're the mule." And he's the mule trotting the furrows in the field. You know, he said, "Dad, I'm not taking this crap anymore."
At the young age of 13, Sonny mustered up the courage to leave his abusive father. All alone, he hitchhiked to St. Louis to reunite with his mother. But Sonny, not having the ability to read or write, had almost nothing going for him at his new schools. So he took to the mean streets of St. Louis, where his tremendously stocky physique and appearance of a man gained him fear and respect, and eventually led him to a life of crime.
He said he was in school. They were smaller kids, and they would make fun of him because he was so big.
He eventually started playing hooky and dropping out and not going to class, and his formal education didn't get very far.
He was at the dark side of St. Louis at the time, the real poor section, and he saw how the poor people got money.
He winds up getting into trouble. He's a big guy, and his size is intimidating. And I think what he discovers when he's a teenager is that his size can be intimidating, and he can maybe use that to his advantage.
As a teenager, Liston had racked up charges of larceny and armed robbery and was known to the police as a Nixie fighter, a man not afraid to fight the cops. Eventually, every police car in St. Louis had a picture of Liston taped to their sun visors. The man had a target on his back.
A serious prison record, armed robbery, assaults on police officers.
Sonny Liston was the most threatening guy around.
In 1956, in a brawl with a police officer, the cop wound up with a broken knee, and Sonny managed to run off with the cop's gun and a cap. Then, after his release, he wound up in another fight with a policeman, wound up putting him upside down in a trash barrel.
After he busted the cop's leg in St. Louis, he was a branded man.
The word had gone out, harass this guy, put the screws to him wherever you get the chance.
Sonny Liston, after some minor infractions, went to the big time. He went to rob a gas station, he went to rob a restaurant.
After Sonny was tried, he got 5 years in jail. That was the sentence for armed robbery at the time. And he went to the penitentiary in Jefferson, which was a really tough place.
Time magazine called it the bloodiest 47 acres in America. Gangs ruled it. There were fights all the time. Guards were afraid to patrol some of the D blocks.
But his sentence soon turned into a blessing in disguise, as he was able to thrive in the prison boxing program. Even in the United States' most infamous prison at the time, Liston was the most feared man on the block.
They couldn't get anybody to fight him by himself. They had to put 2 or 3 in the ring with him to get him any kind of exercise. So I knew he had to be a very strong, powerful man.
This guy was a headbreaker. That's how he went to prison. And in prison, he was a headbreaker. He was feared.
After defeating every man who dared to challenge him, his reputation found its way to some of the mafia's head honchos, who served as the underworld commissioners of boxing. His potential in the boxing world and mob connections helped get him an early parole. and also on the outside landed Sonny a job as a mafia leg breaker. Frankie Carbo, a former professional killer for Murder Incorporated, now ruled the boxing game from the shadows and was now the undercover manager of Sonny Liston.
As of December 1960, Sonny Liston was controlled by powerful racketeer groups under the leadership of Frank Carbo, Mr. Gray, the superintendent, one of the most feared gunmen of the Prohibition era, and the undisputed czar of the professional sport.
Have you ever threatened any manager or boxer or promoter for not carrying out any wishes? I respectfully decline to answer the question on the ground that I cannot be compelled to be a witness against myself.
When he wasn't boxing, Liston's new boss made sure he was available for other work.
Laborers got out of line. Sonny was the guy that roughed them up. He would collect money for loan sharks and numbers writers.
And they involved him to enforce their strikes, their collection of debts, and any other little job that needed to be done.
And they knew this guy could knock out anybody if he hit them, and it was just a question of finding the right front managers. The richest prize in sports is the heavyweight championship, and the mob wanted to get back control of the heavyweight title.
Liston was matched up against the most avoided, promising heavyweight prospects and obliterated each one of them. Feared Cleveland Williams held the title as the hardest puncher in the division until Liston battered him on 2 separate occasions. It took Sonny only 69 seconds to finish veteran Wayne Bethea and knock out 7 of his teeth. Liston brought in the beginning of the big heavyweights. Previously, the heavyweight crown was held by men who fought under 200 pounds. At 215, Liston was a behemoth compared to his 190-pound counterparts. He had an 84-inch reach and required custom-made gloves to fit his 15-inch sized hands. Thought to have the hardest jab in boxing history, Sonny fought with an innate aggression and lack of pity towards his opponents. The Mafia, known to rig a contest results to their liking, needed not worry with any of Liston's fights. They now controlled the most destructive heavyweight since Jack Dempsey, and the top contenders felt the sting of his punches.
Harris gets hit with a left hook and goes down.
A prize fight is like a cowboy movie, Liston once gloated. There has to be a good guy and a bad guy. People pay their money to see me lose. Only in my cowboy movie, the bad guy always wins.
Westfall has never been knocked off his feet until now.
Sonny was one of these classic punchers with either hand like Lewis or later like Tyson. He had enormous punching power and he knocked almost everybody out quickly.
Liston switches his attack from the body to the head in a smashing left hook, puts Williams down.
Tremendous left jab and a great hook. Sonny really became a force in boxing.
Oh, there it was.
And this guy could really hit. He knocked the stuffing out of the headgear. When he hit you, it came apart.
Johnson catapults to the canvas.
Nobody ever hit me like that guy. Every time he hit, he broke something. He broke my nose, my left cheekbone, and gave me 72 stitches.
A dynamite combination of punches by Sonny Liston. And McMurray goes down.
Sonny Liston belongs among the 5 greatest heavyweights of all time. He had a left jab in front of him, which was probably the best in all heavyweight history. Had the kind of a jab that went through you.
And a fast right to the head puts Harris down. Sonny lands a strong overhand right.
He had a reputation as a fearsome puncher, a potential rival for heavyweight champion Floyd Patterson.
Who do you want to fight in the ring in your next engagement? The man got the title. Mr. Floyd Patterson, currently the heavyweight champion.
Despite his underworld allies, Sonny earned a title shot the hard and honest way. He cleared the division in such a violent manner that it was obvious to everyone that Liston was the best in the weight class, and heavyweight champion Floyd Patterson knew it too. Patterson was the darling of wholesome America. Civil rights organizations desired black athletes to be model citizens, to positively represent African Americans. Floyd Patterson was the perfect representation for this cause. Charles Sonny Liston was not.
There was an awful lot of controversy at the time whether this morally reckless person, quote unquote, actually was worthy of fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world.
We don't really associate Sonny Liston with the civil rights movement because the civil rights movement didn't associate itself with Sonny Liston.
There was a lot of concern about Liston fighting for the title to represent us. He's not the kind of image that we want. You know, this guy's been in prison, he's illiterate, he's got all these connections with these white gangsters, and we don't want that.
Everybody knows that the best heavyweight in the world at this time was Charles Sonny Liston. There was no number two. Everybody knew it. The question was he going to be permitted to fight for the title?
Well, I've fought all the top contenders, and I fought my way up to the #1 spot. So what do a man have to do to earn a shot at the title?
The champion, Floyd Patterson, was a popular figure. His manager refused to let him fight Liston because of his connections to the mob.
Floyd Patterson was sold as kind of the meek, safe, polite Negro, in contrast to Sonny Liston as a menace to civilization, a threat to the cleanliness of sports.
Floyd Patterson was invited to the White House by Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy urged Patterson to fight Liston and to beat him.
Then, in 1962, over the strong objections of his mentor, Cus D'Amato, Patterson signed to defend his title against Charles Sonny Liston.
Cassius, in about a month from now, Sonny Liston is going to be trying to get the championship from Floyd Patterson. How do you see this fight?
Trying to get Sonny Liston will get it.
When Liston goes into the ring, he's booed.
Sonny Liston!
And Floyd Patterson came into the ring, obviously terrified. And you knew, looking at Floyd Patterson, that it wasn't going to last very long.
Sonny Liston moves out to face the big chance of his 28 years of a turbulent life. The Liston hook to the head is the first good punch of the fight.
And Liston gets to him against the ropes with lefts and rights, ties him up, won't let him get away. Liston with a left, short right to the body, a left hook, and Patterson is down.
Sonny Liston destroyed Floyd Patterson at 2 minutes and 6 seconds of the first round.
It was a slaughter, and Sonny Liston wins the heavyweight championship of the world. The stadium was eerily quiet, almost funereal.
And in the oversimplified world of boxing, evil has just defeated good.
The public would let bygones be bygones, that I would be a good champ, maybe a better champ than he was, either just as good a champ as he was.
Against all odds, Sonny achieved what he set out to do, and all he wanted now was a second chance to live a respectable life and not be seen as a criminal. But nothing changed.
The morning after the fight, Sonny flies back to Philadelphia. He believes he has wiped the slate clean, preparing a speech where he's promising to be a good champion, and he just assumes that the mayor is going to be there and there's going to be a big parade.
He at least thought he would come home to a hero's welcome. And the plane landed in Philadelphia, and he was hoping to see hundreds or maybe even thousands of people on the tarmac. You know, welcome home, champ. The usual thing that you see happening with championship fighters coming home. And there was nobody. You know, this guy who was waiting for his great moment in life saw that nothing had happened. No one had come to greet him, and his shoulders just slumped. The feeling of hope, of acceptance into the greater world, vanished in an instant.
A lot of people feel that that really crushed him emotionally and that he never really recovered from that disappointment, or really the realization that it didn't make any difference what Sonny Liston did. The rest of his life, he was always going to be branded as a bad guy.
Sonny's desires to be a good person was crushed along with his dream to be accepted by the public. To the world, he was just an uneducated Southern Negro, and that intimidated them. The press labeled him as a jungle beast, a latter-day caveman. It was then that Liston embraced the role of a villain.
Sonny was uncomfortable dealing with the press, so he'd usually answer a question with one word or an angry stare. The Sonny Liston stare became known as.
Who asked the question? Are you over there?
If he didn't like a question, he would just sit there and look at you, or he would tell you it's a stupid question and not answer it. He was also very intimidating.
He was suspicious of everyone. He didn't like reporters.
Who do you expect your next real fight to be with?
Haven't I been having real ones?
After watching you spar today, it seems that you plan a vastly increased use of your right hand. Is this true?
I'm planning on using both of them.
Both of them?
Right.
Newspapers painted him as a bad fella.
But for people that are around him and people he knew and liked, he was a good fellow. He'd do anything for you.
The problem was his name began to appear on the front pages of the newspaper more than in the sports sections of the newspaper.
The Denver police harassed Sonny Liston, and I thought treated him very bad. If he would step 1 foot onto the golf course where he ran, I was with him. They were there to give him a ticket on it.
Went to one of these drive-through hamburger joints and came out the entrance instead of the exit. Suddenly there's 2 police cars there.
Even after he became champion, the police, they went right on harassing him, petty things, picking him up for standing on a street corner talking to someone. For Sonny, the last straw is when they picked him up in the park for driving too slowly.
Liston, who was now the champion, if anything, was more disliked now. And I think Patterson, who was deeply beloved, if anything, was now held as a last beacon of hope.
A year after winning the title, Patterson mistakenly asked Liston for a rematch. Sonny obliged him. Liston was at the height of his powers, and his aura of invincibility was more imposing than ever.
Sonny, what about Floyd Patterson? Is he going to be your next opponent? And if he is, what are you going to do to him? He'll be my next opponent. What I'm going to do to him in the next fight, what happened in the first one?
He's getting through underneath and he's got him going again. Less than a minute gone, and there's the first count. Those heavy lefts going through on the right, following up, and this is what's doing the damage. He's tried to fight back Patterson, but the other man has got by far the heavier punch. And he's over again the second time.
Points down for the third time. Lightning has struck again in the same round as the first fight. The fight lasted 2 minutes and 10 seconds, reconfirming Liston as the heavyweight champion of the world. Despite the win, Liston was again denied the public acceptance he so badly wanted.
The public is not with me now, but they have to swing along until somebody else come along to beat me.
But there to interrupt the celebrations was the future of boxing. The loud and promising youngster, Cassius Clay, stormed into the ring and proclaimed that he was the man to beat Liston. And over the coming months, Clay would take pestering to an entirely new level.
The bomb is too big, he's too flat-footed, and he's too slow.
He had gone to his home and banged on his door in the middle of the night in order to aggravate him.
He thought of all these high school stunts that he pulled on Sonny, which were demeaning, insulting.
And he starts screaming, "Chomp, chomp, I'm gonna get you." And he's screaming for everybody to hear. Liston finally looks up in that baleful stare of his, pulls out a gun and bang, 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 bang. And Clay runs out as fast as he ever could. It was blanks, and Liston roared for an hour.
Don't you have any respect for him at all, as a fighter?
As a fighter, I think he should be locked up for impersonating a fighter.
Liston said, "Why not?" He said, "I'm gonna kill him. It's gonna take me a round and a half."
Sonny Liston took the fight because he thought he could destroy Cassius Clay.
Well, do you think it'll end in 2? Well, you can bet your life it ain't going 4.
From the outset, it's obvious that Liston is underestimated Clay's ability.
All over, body, head, and right hand. The best punch in the fight so far.
Then he started to take Sonny apart. Pop, 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 pop.
Here was a finely tuned, magnificent young athlete in front of him. Sonny suddenly realized, wow, this is something I've never been up against in the ring.
Sonny, flat-footed stance most of the time. Easy target, easy. Another jarring right hand that time, folks. Another one. Sonny wobbles. Sonny wobbles. Cassius has him hurt.
When Liston lopped his butt down on the stool at the end of the 6th round, he said, "That's it."
They might be stopping it. That might be all, ladies and gentlemen. Something has happened in Liston's corner. They're not going on. And Clay has won.
Sonny, a man who took great pride in being the baddest man in the world, no longer was. And there, at his lowest moment, was the press, as merciless as ever, descended upon Liston while he was down.
Reporters came at him hard like a group of vultures. The press was saying Sonny was a dog, Sonny was a quitter.
It only added to his bad reputation, not as an individual, but as a fighter.
Just quit at the end of the 6th round, claiming a shoulder injury, which nobody believed.
When I went back to my corner, the whole glove felt like it was full of water.
And he was deeply ashamed. This was the thing that gave Sonny his identity. He was the toughest guy in the world. And suddenly he woke up one morning and he wasn't the toughest guy in the world. So he decided to do something about it.
The night of the infamous Phantom Punch, and perhaps the most controversial moment in boxing history, Liston was floored by what seemed to be a harmless punch. Throughout his career, Sonny had been able to walk through some of the hardest punchers' best shots, but now had been sent to the canvas from a shot where the connection could only be seen in slow motion. From his obvious unwillingness to rise to his feet and his mob connections, rumors of a fix or a dive spread like wildfire. This would be Liston's last fight with a championship on the line.
Any chance that Sonny had for another shot at the title was lost in 1969 after he was knocked out by a former sparring partner, Leotis Martin.
There, the right by Martin. Oh! Liston is knocked down with the right and then the left, and he is knocked out. This fight will be over, and with it, Charles Sonny Liston's career.
The cold fact is it will be harder than ever, Sonny, to go all the way up the trail after this defeat.
Yes, it would. But I have to tank it over here.
Sonny had one last bout against Chuck Wepner, where he made only $13,000, $10,000 to repay a loan, and the remaining amount paid to his cornermen. By this time, Sonny had relocated to Vegas, a mob-run town that wouldn't look down upon him. Almost none of his career earnings left, Liston found his way back to his old life as mafia debt collector. He was also seen associating with more and more criminal figures, who Sonny would eventually fall out of favor with.
There were all kinds of allegations as to what Sonny was doing. There were those that say he was pushing heroin, doing the same kind of things, associating with the same kind of people he always had.
A lot of people didn't want to have anything to do with Sonny at that point. They was scared about how far off the edge he was going.
Friends of his were told Sonny's hanging out with the wrong folks. There's a drug deal going down and Sonny's involved in it. He was an accident waiting to happen.
Sonny Liston was found dead today in his home in Las Vegas, Nevada.
On January 5th, 1971, after leaving her husband alone in the house over the Christmas holidays, Geraldine Liston returned to find Sonny slumped over, heavily bloated, and in an advanced state of decomposition. With heroin in his system, it was ruled that Sonny died of natural causes. But Liston's fear of needles questioned that ruling and left theories of foul play.
So many people wanted Sonny dead. The only question is who got to him first.
He had gotten involved, muscling in on somebody's loan sharking business, and that he was murdered over this dispute.
Most people in Las Vegas think he was given what they call a hot shot by some element of the mob.
But was it self-inflicted, or was it administered by someone else?
Some people saying that he was getting too big for his britches. He was trying to muscle in on some of the underground characters he was working for, and they decided that this was the way to dispose of Sonny.
As forceful a presence as Liston was inside the ring, he remained a mystery outside of it, even in death.
The exact date of his birth is unknown, and fittingly, we're unsure the day he died. The mysteries and conspiracies that surround his death will never be solved now, but a natural death just seems an unlikely ending to the Liston story. He was a tragic figure who lived a tragic life, but his story wasn't without triumph. His beginnings were as low and muddy as can be, yet he rose to the peak of society and soared like a shooting star. All he desired to do was live a normal, peaceful life, but he was unfortunately never able to do so. Sadly, being misunderstood by the world is what pushed Liston into a life he didn't want to live. For such a powerful man, he had very little power over his own life. Throughout his career, he was given identities that he desperately tried to shake off. He was an illiterate, an ex-con, a leg breaker, and without a doubt, the most intimidating heavyweight champion of all time.
I don't think the general public ever knew the real Sonny Liston. They knew the persona, the thug-like guy. He wasn't really that. That was a front. That was like what he needed to protect himself.
deep inside, he was misunderstood and sensitive and wounded, and that rejection, that denial of a second chance to prove himself hurt him the rest of his life.
Sonny was one of the most charming people I've ever known in sports, but he didn't share it with people because he had been burnt so often.
He was very cuddly and affectionate. I never saw that side of Sonny that's been described as so menacing. He just wasn't like that. He was a fun-loving person.
Sonny was spectacular with little children and old people because they were non-threatening.
Go on, Teddy. Get the man a kiss.
And he was like a father figure to me. Little things he wanted to impart with me about behaving. For me, he really wanted to make certain I stayed out of trouble.
He's a good man and he's a kind man and worthy of a chance to contribute to society.
Now, if you should win the championship, do you have any plans on what you're going to do after that?
I would like to work with the kids in the youth centers and everything.
They need help, don't
they? Yes, they do.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe.